This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 2496, When Self-Care Becomes Self-Sabotage, by Sara Stanizai of ProspectTherapy.com. And I'm Justin Malik, your very own personal narrator today and every day. Me narrating means there are no interviews. It's just a short podcast where we can both improve our lives one day at a time. So with that, let's get right to today's post and start optimizing your life. When Self-Care Becomes Self-Sabotage, by Sara Stanizai of ProspectTherapy.com. Self-care has become something of a buzzword in the past few years, and with good reason. In an increasingly busy world, an emphasis has put on taking time out to reflect on our own well-being and how we treat ourselves. Plus, the outdated notion that it's wrong to be selfish or sometimes indulge is no longer the norm. What happens when self-care turns into self-sabotage? It can be hard to tell, but sometimes our self-care routines are bordering on self-sabotage. They're not good for us at all. While it is essential to treat yourself from time to time and also create an environment that isn't toxic and burning you out, it's just as important to recognize when your habits start holding you back. Let's take a look at a few examples of everyday self-care routines that can border on self-sabotage if they're done too frequently or for the wrong reasons. Enjoying a drink after a long day. We've all been there. After an exhausting day, sometimes nothing sounds better than popping the cork on a bottle of wine and just relaxing. Alcohol can be a great way to unwind, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying a drink or two. If you choose to have a drink after a particularly grueling day, then this can qualify as self-care. However, using alcohol or other substances routinely to dull your feelings is not actually doing you any favors. Those feelings are still there, and avoiding them just prolongs or worsens their impact. In addition, alcohol use can become a slippery slope. One drink turns into two into three, and before you know it, your routine involves drinking every single night. Everyone has different limits, so what may be heavy drinking for some isn't so for others. However, becoming dependent on substances of any type to moderate or medicate our stressful emotions can lead to trouble down the line. It's crucial to know your limits and recognize when enough is enough. Otherwise, you may find yourself becoming too dependent on this form of self-care that may end up sabotaging you. Obsessing about food. One of the greatest comforts in life is food. Sure, it's helpful to make an effort to eat well and make healthy decisions about food, whatever that means for you. You are allowed to eat without feeling guilty. And food provides so much more than just nutrition and energy. There's a reason that all 256 cooking shows are so mesmerizing. Preparing, enjoying, and sharing meals can do wonders for your mental health. It borders on self-sabotage when you stop making conscious decisions and food begins controlling you. Sometimes strict plans have the superficial appearance of being healthy, but they actually can hold you back and impact your mental health. It's a slippery slope toward restricting, binging, or masking emotional distress. Again, everyone knows what's best for their body when it comes to food, but mindfulness goes a long way. Avoiding situations and the accountability that goes with them. Let's say you had a big fight with your best friend. You need time to cool off, so you avoid their calls and texts. You might even avoid the situation altogether and eventually end the friendship because, well, self-care. And this is okay to an extent. You're allowed to take time to process your emotions. Furthermore, it's for the best to temporarily avoid contact to ensure that you don't say anything hurtful out of anger. It becomes problematic when you continuously ignore the situation long after it occurred. You're sabotaging yourself when you don't develop the skills to repair a relationship. This means taking accountability, giving an apology, and accepting where your growth happens. Sure, no one enjoys conflict, and yet it's a part of life. It is inevitable whenever we attempt to have relationships with other people. At times within a relationship, you have to question whether this is a hill you're willing to die on. Ultimately, the sooner you resolve the issue, the better you'll feel. However, if you continue to ignore the situation, you may lose someone important to you for good. And that's not fair to you nor the other person. rest versus stagnation. No doubt about it, our culture values productivity. At times, we're our own engine of workaholism, putting in 70-hour weeks to get that promotion. Other times, we're at the mercy of economic forces outside of ourselves, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Whatever it is that drives us, it is important to get a good night's sleep and take the time to pause and, at times, just do nothing in order to manage our health and our mood. In this kind of environment, it can be hard enough to make ourselves rest. It is an important goal if you're always on the go. Take note, however, if you stop being able to deliberately choose when you rest and when you get to work. If your pattern becomes vegging on the couch and watching Netflix every night for months at the expense of making progress on your larger goals, there is a chance that you're escaping your feelings and avoiding confronting something within yourself. We optimize our lives by striking a balance between resting our current selves and dedication to our future selves. If you're not willing to stop or at least slow down, you'll inevitably find yourself equally unable to take action or get motivated. Ironically, skipping the rest and relaxation part will sabotage you by forcing you to a grinding halt later. If you feel like you may be losing touch, there is no shame in seeking professional help to get your routines and priorities back on track. A therapist can help you understand where you may be bordering into sabotage territory and how to get back onto the journey of true self-care. You just listened to the post titled, When Self-Care Becomes Self-Sabotage by Sara Stanizai of ProspectTherapy.com. And thank you to Sara. I don't think we've ever heard this perspective here on the show, or if we have, it's definitely rare. Obviously, we've heard the other side of this, the importance of self-care. Maybe even most of the articles I share have an element of that somewhere in there. But seeing the difference between self-care and destructive behaviors is super important. For me, I can definitely get stuck in rest or avoidance. And you've probably heard me say before that the first step is always recognizing this within ourselves, awareness basically. And then, and only then, are we able to take a step forward. So I like that Sara gave some actual examples of places we could get stuck and where it could actually be self-sabotaging behavior. And like she mentioned at the end, a therapist definitely can help here. Sometimes that's the push we need to get out of the rut or out of an unhelpful or unhealthy pattern. And there's no shame in seeking out professional help. So definitely go that route if you're curious. Have a great weekend if you're listening in real time, and I'll catch you tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.